Welcome back to the Prosperity Playbook podcast. I am back here again with Jess Larum. And if you did not catch the episode last week, make sure you go back and do that. We talked about vision first businesses, exit strategies. We talked about scaling businesses, all kinds of good stuff. There was just tons of gold in there. And one episode was not enough. So we decided to basically make this one kind of an actionable one. And we're going to talk about the most common pain points in businesses, and Jess is going to give us some tips on how to address those. So hopefully some of this will ring very true to you. And again, of course, feel free to share this. Please do share this with other business owners that you know. And again, I'm back with Jess Larum. She is a fractional COO, and her company is called Liminal Ops Consulting. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Awesome. So let's just jump right in here. What do you think is the number one pain point that with all the businesses that you work with that you hear most common complaint? Or maybe they're all different. Okay. Well, let's talk about one that we talked quite a bit about on the last one. So let's talk about owner dependency, meaning like the business just doesn't exist if the owner isn't there 24/7.
Yeah. So Dave Ramsey, I don't drink all the Kool-Aid, but I drink some of it.
Good. Okay.
But a quote that I heard from him at one point was, someone who doesn't delegate because they don't have people to delegate into is wise. Someone who doesn't delegate because even though they have people they can delegate into is a control freak. And so I think owner dependency has a lot to do with your team, whether or not you trust your team, and if you should trust your team.
That's a hard balance.
Yes.
It's especially in the beginning. As I can remember in my early mortgage days of like, my file had to be perfect and I didn't want to give it to anybody else until it was. And I would have processors like come and take files back when we had physical files, take them off my desk and be like, it's good. I got it from here. Like, I got you. And part of it was because I didn't want to go get another loan. It was more comfortable to sit here and work on the loan than it was to go figure out how to get another one. So there was some sales reluctance there. But I no doubt was a control freak and probably still am to a certain extent because I think a lot of us just genuinely believe we do it the best.
Yeah.
And there's nobody else that's going to do it as good as us.
Yeah. But there is multiple ways to skin a cat.
Let's talk about that.
So, I think the first question is, do you have people that you can delegate into? Do you have people that you trust? And if the answer to that question is no, then we start looking historically, like, is this a theme?
Okay.
Have you always underhired? And do we need to make room in a budget to overhire, or not overhire, but hire someone with a little bit better of a skill set, a more well-suited skill set? And then what are the things that you are actually delegating? And I like to start with the areas of business that owners do not like.
Okay.
So if we talk about the desire zone and the drudgery zone, like, what is your drudgery zone? Where does it feel like pulling teeth? And that's what we want to delegate out first.
Okay, I like that.
And then one of the things that I see a lot with owner dependency is, we were just talking about it, responsibility without authority. Like, sometimes the business owner will have a right-hand person of some kind, and they say, go execute on this, that, or the other thing, and the execution goes kind of sideways or south or isn't done well. And sometimes that's because there is responsibility without authority. That person isn't actually handed the authority necessary to execute on those things with the team.
I think that's a really important point. I think I've worked for companies where nobody was empowered to make decisions and it never ends well. Like, you have to not only delegate, but give them the authority to like own it. And I think sometimes it's about, you have to give very specific instructions, but sometimes it's about like, here's the outcome I want, make it happen. Yeah. And let them have that creative freedom of how to get it there. Yep. Maybe that goes against systems, or maybe that's okay. What do you think?
No, I think there is, like, I like the saying, fail through it. I think one of the things that I tell operators quite a bit is you're juggling a lot of balls. and two of those balls are going to fall. Your job is to make sure that it's the correct two. And so strategically looking at your workload,
Okay.
making sure that the people you're delegating into are actually doing that. And then on top of that, I never recommend that a business owner takes their eyes off the business until they have, and we talked about this in the first episode, reliable data. If you have insight into your business, both trailing and leading, we're looking rear view and we're looking out, and it is giving you a full picture of what is working well and what isn't,
Okay.
then you have what you need in order to take your eyes off.
So what might that be for a business? Like, obviously profitability can be one thing. What are other like barometers to figure out if things are moving the way that they should?
Yeah. So we want to look at the core functions of business. So we want to look at your sales. We want to look at your financial performance. We want to look at your reputation, your customer service.
Okay, so reviews and things like that. Okay.
And we want to look at your employees, how happy.
Okay. So retention maybe. And okay.
And we're thinking like somewhere between 8 to 15 metrics.
Okay.
By themselves, they say something.
Okay.
And then when you synthesize them with other metrics, they say something else. So one of like the easiest examples of this is if we looked at how many jobs were completed on time, if we're in like a construction company or a construction adjacent company.
Yep.
How many jobs were completed on time? What was the overtime?
Yeah.
Because if you're completing 100% of your jobs on time, great. But if you had really high overtime, then your profitability is going to get cut into.
You got to make sure that you're accounting for that in your bids.
Or if we're thinking about sales, we want to think about, yes, what leads are in the pipeline right now, but we also want to look at activity levels, because if the activity levels that actually produce the leads that then turn into contracts are low, then in some time we might have a pipeline that's not as full as we need it to be.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that I have seen that I've struggled with in my business over the years is it's like, we will have a crazy good month and we all worked our asses off to like make that happen. But it was like, I kept getting pulled back into like loans that were already in process. And that takes me away from going and getting more loans. And so you can watch the chart almost every single month after I have a really big month, then I have a small month. And this month was exactly the same. We did 5.8 million last month, which was a good month. This month we're going to do 2.8. And that I was like kind of hard on myself about that until my coach was like, you realize that most lenders would be really happy to have a $2.8 million month. And I was like, great point. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Now I don't feel quite as bad, but you see that kind of up and down a little bit. And the goal is to obviously kind of smooth that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we go back to owner dependency, we're thinking about hiring the right people, delegating the right things at the right time, making sure that we're looking at reliable data that gives us visibility, not into just one area of the business, but all of our core functions of the business. And it also takes a lot, as we were just talking about, for an owner to actually trust and be like, okay, I am going to let go of this and trust and use that dashboard that we've created to that continues to affirm, okay, things are going well. It might not be exactly the way that I want it to be, but the data is real and it's telling me that things are going well.
It is a hard thing to do. And especially like my industry, obviously you're handling one of their most important financial decisions. And that is, you just want to make sure you do a good job. And you want to make sure that your team is an extension of you and that they care as much about that customer and doing things the right way as you do. And like if Ryan, my upfront assistant, if he messes up on an income calculation and I don't catch it, we might pre-approve somebody that didn't actually qualify for a house. And that's my freaking nightmare. I mean, I've done this 21 years. It has happened where we've had things fall apart mid-process, but it doesn't really happen very much anymore. But it is something that I worry about. You have to be able to trust those people. But the only way for me to scale, the only way for me to be able to do 6-7 million a month is if I can't touch every aspect. I have to only keep the parts that I'm the best at, and then let Ryan and Michelle and Lisa do the other parts.
And we'll talk a little bit about that with a constant pain point is processes and getting your processes dialed, written, followed. But in developing those processes, you do want to kind of pinpoint those crucial, like, failure is not an option.
Yeah.
And implement controls. There should be 2 people that then touch that part.
That makes sense. So I really want to pick your brain about hiring, but I'm afraid that might be a whole nother episode.
We can talk about hiring a little bit.
So let's briefly talk about hiring, and maybe this will be foreshadowing for a whole episode another time. But I feel like it's something that I'm maybe not the best at. I feel like I have struggled with, people will tell me that they can do all of these things. And I developed this like test of, can you calculate income on this tax return? And I was surprised. The last one just like nailed the test and then wasn't actually able to do it in real life. So I don't know if he had somebody help him or what, but the execution was very different. And that's happened twice in a row to me with hiring people that did not have the skill set that they told me that they had. And that was a very difficult thing for me. And so how do you find the right people? What are the green flags? And is Indeed the right answer to post your ads, or is there something better?
Yeah. I think it depends. I think Indeed, for if you're hiring local help, I do really like Indeed. I've had a lot of success with it. I think LinkedIn, if you're open to candidates from all over. Yep. And depending on, you got to think about your candidate avatar. Like, what are their core competencies? Where are they spending their time? Are they even on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Right? And then when we talk about hiring, like, core competencies is a big one for not only hiring, but also the way you structure your company. And the 2 jobs that I see the most crossover with is sales and operations. You'll have operations-minded people handling something that sales should be doing, and vice versa. And so if we think about your candidate avatar, which is informed by the core competencies of the role, which is informed by what department or function of the business is that role participating in.
Okay.
And then from there, we want to think about some of the personality traits that are going to fall in line with that candidate avatar. Like, do they need to be detail oriented?
Yeah.
Do they need to be charismatic and easy to talk to? Like,
yeah.
And measuring that. And then there's a whole slew of things that you can do on the front end and while you're hiring to kind of suss out, like, what are some resume red flags that we need to be looking out for.
Like changing jobs a lot?
Yes and no. Like, that's changing a bit. It depends on what a lot is.
Okay.
Like, if it's 3 to 6 months,
okay,
that's a lot.
Okay.
But the incoming, like, millennials and Gen Z, that's shifting. Like, with Gen X and boomers, they stayed in jobs 10, 15 years, 5, 7 years.
Yep.
Millennials and Gen Z, not so much.
Okay.
Which is also why when we set up the roles, like when we think about our org structure, what we were talking about before, we want to make, and that is why that candidate avatar is so important. The person, you want to paint a picture of the person that's going to be most successful in this role. You don't want to create roles around people and get these Frankenstein roles of like, well, that person was good at this and this and this. And so they just handled all of it, but it becomes really hard to replace that person.
Yeah.
And where our candidate pool is a lot more fluid, we want to make sure that we're.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm having a reaction that you probably won't like, but that makes me want to not hire any young people, because if that's what they do, if they job hop, that scares me. Like, I don't like starting over.
What does job hopping mean to you?
Well, I mean, I understand that they're probably not going to stay forever, but I mean, my favorite assistant that I had when I first started at Cornerstone, she passed away. I mean, she was with me and literally until the end, and that it was heartbreaking. But I guess that's a good point. I guess I am very loyal. I'm one of those Gen X that stays forever, and I'm more loyal than I should. I always stay longer than I should at companies. It's just part of what I do because I'm loyal to people. And so I kind of want people to be that way as well. But I guess I don't know. Maybe that's the question: is what is a proper expectation for how long somebody should stay in a job? There's probably no real answer to that. But what are your thoughts?
For me, I think 2 years.
2 years.
If you're 2 years plus, then I think that is a decent amount of time to spend with a company. I do like to ask people, like, what happened? Why did you leave? What made you unhappy?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about like environments that you thrived in and leadership you thrived under.
Okay.
Versus environments you didn't thrive in and leadership you did not thrive under. And that will tell you a lot about what kind of...
I like that. That's a great question. Environments and leadership that you thrived under and that you didn't.
Mm-hmm. And also with your test, I mean, that is a curious thing. Are you giving this test... Are you hiring people that are in the Valley?
No.
Okay.
I have one assistant he was in Texas at the time. He moved to Seattle recently. I have one in Tennessee and one in Oklahoma.
So are they doing this test live while you're with them? Or
No,
you
I just emailed it and said, here's the tax return. I gave him a redacted tax return and just said, send me your income calcs on this. Send me your red flags, anything that you would be concerned. And then I did the same thing with a redacted pay stub. Like, okay, what's your income calculation on this? And what are the things I should be worried about? So
how long should that take somebody?
I mean, I could probably do it in 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I gave him the weekend to do it because I wanted him to be detailed and give me a thorough answer. And I got it back like within a couple hours.
What would be your expectation of how long it should take them when they're working for you?
So when the loan comes in now, Ryan does all the upfront stuff. He'll do the initial income calculations once he gets the documentation. It depends on how complicated it is. So like a big part of the timing on his job is how quickly do we get all the things from the customer? Because sometimes they're like, bam, 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 here it is right away. More often than not, they're like, here's one thing. And then 2 days later, we get one more thing. And sometimes we have to chase them for weeks. So that depends. But typically, I would expect if we get the documentation, I want it within 24 hours. There should be an initial decision.
But when he sits down and actually starts doing the calculation from the finish.
If it's an easy tax return, that should be a 10-minute project. If it's somebody that owns 47 rental properties and has 12 businesses, that might take a couple hours.
And how much of his job is this?
Probably 50%.
Okay. Yeah, if I were you, I would do those live in real time and make the exercise as close to the expectation as you possibly can.
Okay. That makes sense. So what are there any other traits that is a super red flag? So obviously job hopping, as I call it, is apparently not. So what are some things that you would look at either on a resume that would scare you or in an interview that they said that you were like, oof?
And what I do want to say about job hopping is I think young people are capable and they do stay longer than 2 years at a role. I do think it is worth asking because sometimes there are things that are happening outside of an employee's control that lend them to having to find a different job. And so giving people, I'm a huge proponent that like resumes are a terrible way to get to know somebody.
Well, I feel like they're all written by AI right now anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a teenager that I've helped like do a resume and stuff, and literally it is just AI just rewrites it for you.
Yeah. And but also like at this point I have 14 years of professional experience. Like how am I supposed to communicate that well on a one sheet piece of paper?
Oh, totally.
Anyway,
so income. So obviously, an interview is what you're saying is more important.
So the process that I recommend is post the job. The job posting should not be a job description. It should be more of a job advertisement. You're listing some selling points about the company. You are listing some selling points about the role. It should be quick and easy to read.
Okay.
Not exhaustive and 20 pages long. Then vet those resumes and do so with grace. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have hired somebody whose resume I almost threw out.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And when you vet them, I schedule a 15-minute, what I call the non-negotiables phone call. Did you look at the salary? Is it within your range?
Yeah.
Do you live in the place we need you to live? Do you have what we need you to have in order to perform this role? But what happens is not only are you getting those non-negotiables out of the way, but you're seeing how quickly they're responding to you on Indeed or wherever platform you've reached out to them. You're scheduling a 15-minute phone call. You're going to see whether they show up on time. You're going to get a very quick understanding of what their general disposition is, how they talk to people. And if they don't show up to that 15-minute, good thing you didn't schedule an hour.
100%. Yeah. That's always one of Josh's biggest things is when people just flat don't show up.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, how do you not call? How do you not shoot a text and say, I'm not coming, I got another job or whatever? Like how
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why do people think that's okay?
It's not.
Yeah. It happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. And even in that like 15-minute non-negotiable phone call, when I schedule that, I send a message with 2 questions. What is your availability? And what is a good time to reach you at, or a good number to reach you at? And if they don't answer both of those questions, they didn't take the time to read
it.
2 sentences.
Yeah.
And so it tells you a lot of information really quickly. As far as major red flags, and I'm trying to think of one that like most people wouldn't think would be a red flag. Answering the question without answering the question. A lot of people do that.
Like redirecting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I do like to make sure that I keep to the core of what my question was. Yeah, that's a manipulation tactic.
Interesting. Well, I think there are some weird questions out there right now. I don't know where people are getting some of these. My daughter's boyfriend did an interview for an internship, and they were asking him, like, what was your least favorite English assignment you had to do in high school? And he's like, what?
Like, I was not prepared.
He's like, I'm applying for a heavy equipment operator job. Like, why are you asking me about this?
Yeah, that's strange.
So I don't know. And there were multiple questions like that I was like, are you kidding? Like, that's what they asked you? So I don't know. I mean,
one of my favorite CEOs that I worked under would always ask candidates, how do you organize your sock drawer?
Oh, interesting. But what's the right answer? And that's something that I would walk away from an interview and like stew on that all night long and be like, wonder what the right answer was.
I kind of want to guess at how your sock drawer is organized.
It's not organized. It's just, it's a drawer. My shirts are organized and my pants are organized, but my socks are just in the drawer.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Well, I do think hiring, I've heard this quote of hire slowly and fire fast. Yes. Yeah. So you obviously have heard that. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think if you have a long hiring process with many steps, communicate that on the front end.
Okay.
So make sure the candidate understands, like, hey, you're going to have 3 interviews with these 3 people and a written interview or whatever.
Set
and
the
like,
expectation. Yeah.
Yes. And you get to decide how that interview process goes. And I think a lot of people do rush it. I think there isn't enough conversation. There isn't enough interviews. There isn't intention behind the questions you're asking and why you're asking those questions.
I have never asked anybody about their English assignments, by the way. Maybe I'm missing it.
And then fire fast. Yes, if you can say without a shadow of a doubt, I set them up for success. Like one of my favorite books is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willings.
So good.
Yes.
I've seen him speak. He's amazing.
Amazing. And it talks about when you're pointing the finger at somebody else, there's 4 pointing back at you.
Yep.
Like, did we give this person everything they needed to succeed? If we did, then great.
Yeah.
And yeah, we need to fire fast. And I will say, I work with so many business owners, and I am still learning how to communicate this better, but I can get into a company and very quickly understand that person's your problem. And it is unfortunate. And here are the steps that I recommend to try and salvage the relationship. But I would start working on that quickly, because getting bad eggs out of your company, I think, would be the number one thing I would do fast.
Well, I think that makes sense though, right? Because it's kind of like a cancer. It spreads, especially if like my team's remote, so they don't communicate as much, but there's still plenty there. But if you have one unhappy person, it spreads
so fast.
Somebody's just nipping about some little thing, and then the next person gets complacent, and it's a snowball rolling downhill. So how do you know when it's truly time to be done with somebody? So I've talked about this before. One of my prior assistants, I knew, so I hired her and she did not have the skill set that she had said she did. And I was like, you know what? She has a really good attitude. She works her butt off and she's got a great attitude and the clients love her. I can train the rest. And I believed that. But I believed it for too long. And it went on, and she kept making the same mistakes, and she was very slow at getting things done, and everything was a fire at the last minute. And I'm like, I don't do fires at the last minute. We're talking about people's homes closing. Like, we don't do last minute. That doesn't work for me. And it just never changed. And I read something that was like, if you're having the same conversation over and over, you're having the wrong conversation. And I was like, okay, so here's our new question is, are you the right person for this job? And she was like, I thought you were going to tell me what a great job I was doing. And I was like, what? Like, every day we've had the same conversation. And I don't know. I was like, dude, we are just not speaking the same language. I don't know what's going on. But I kept trying to make it work. And then I just got so frustrated. I could hardly even be nice to her towards the end. And it ended badly. Like, frankly, it ended with her being very mean and not being happy. And I was like, cool, I accept your resignation. Like, let's be done here. And then she, like, no notice, was gone.
Wow.
The next day. And it was the right thing. And it was immediately clear that it was the right thing after she was gone. But I really felt like I wanted to be done sooner. I knew I needed to be done sooner, but I also knew that it was going to put her in a really bad financial spot if I let her go.
Another Dave Ramsey thing. It didn't come from him specifically, but somebody within his company. And she talked about, clear is kind. And, I think we as people have, we stiff arm tough conversations, right? But clear is kind. And so making sure that those expectations and standards are so clear and there is a deadline. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I need to see. And this is when I need to see it by.
Okay.
And then what she says is, if you establish that over and over and over again and make it a deadline, within 3 months, we need this to turn around. And if it doesn't, then the conversation becomes, I didn't want to do this, but you're making me do this.
Well, I think you're right. I think giving it a deadline is a smart idea, instead of like, this has to change. This has to change. Be like, no, this has to change by here.
And it depends on how crucial of a task it is to their job. Because if it is one of the essential core functions of their job, it kind of needs to change tomorrow. And then one of the tools that I love that's in EOS is GWC. Get it, want it, capacity to do it.
Okay.
And the argument is that if they do not get it, like truly understand it, if they do not want it, and they don't have the capacity, the tools and training necessary to do it, then if any one of those is a no, it's a no all the way around.
That makes so much sense. All right. Well, like I said, that probably should have been its own episode. So we'll move on from employees. So obviously, being able to delegate is huge for scalability, for the owner not having to work 147 hours a week, all of that kind of stuff. So let's talk about some other pain points, though. Systems and processes sounds like your baby. That's like your happy place. So let's dive into that a little bit, because I think you said if you have a process one way or another, it's either a shitty process or a good process. It might not be consistent, but there's always a process. So what is the mark of a good process, and where do you start if you don't have anything? You're just flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. So one place I like to start is mapping out from a 30,000 foot view. What is the life cycle? What are the stages? Can we at least name the stages?
Okay.
And and it's kind of like that saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Yep.
So let's first start with your stages. Then we can break those down into the actions that are necessary. And we'll start to get closer to what we call define your core processes.
Okay.
We want to start by defining your core processes. I like workflow maps. I use Lucidchart to do it.
I've seen your workflow maps. They're magical.
Yeah, they're so fun. But what happens when we get this process mapped out visually, and everybody who touches that process is in the room and looking at it, or in the virtual room and looking at it, is we are either all nodding and saying, yes, that is the process, or we're shaking our heads and we understand that there's misalignment and we need to obviously get that sorted. And then on top of that, we can see where our processes might be overcomplicated, where too many people are touching them to accomplish one thing. We can see where they're undercomplicated, like what you were talking about with that part of the process on the forefront of the loan application is like, if this is a crucial make it or break it, then maybe we should have some more controls around who's looking at it when. Yeah. Just specifically that piece.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then we can anytime. So I do them in swim lanes. So every role or department is in a swim lane. And then as that process drops down into a different swim lane, so usually we'll have like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all executed by the same person. Once it drops down, now we know that that's a cross-functional area of the process, and we can zoom in on that handoff. Where is that handoff happening? How is it happening? How are we making sure that during that handoff, it's not falling through the cracks?
That makes sense. Well, it's super interesting, and I think for me, there's a balance between feeling like I'm micromanaging things and letting them kind of just do their thing in the way that works. And like Ryan and Michelle have pretty defined roles. In fact, they have very defined roles, what each of them will do. And then there are sometimes that I'm like, Ryan touches the file beforehand and Michelle touches it after it's locked. But then I'll like go in the file to do something if on a file that's locked and Ryan's in the file. And I'm like, what the fuck is Ryan doing in the file? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, and then the other day I was like, hey, here, can I kick you out of this file? I'm trying to lock it. Like, not what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I was going to lock it for us. And I was like, I lock loans. Like, what are you doing? And I get it. Like, it's the exciting thing. Like, we got it. We've worked hard on this one. Now we're moving forward with it. So I get that. Like,
he wants to push it across the finish line.
I guess so. Yeah. So I don't know. But part of me is like, why? And then Michelle was helping Ryan with something the other day. And then Ryan was helping Michelle. And I'm like, part of this, I like this synergy. But part of me is like, why are you both doing each other's jobs? I'm so confused. So should I let that be? Or should I be like, hey, stick in your lanes?
I mean, I think if it is bringing him some sort of joy and motivation, then maybe it's worth exploring. Yeah. But I do think that followed by all, when our processes are followed by all, then we've achieved success.
That makes sense.
And it impacts so much of, like, I've worked with businesses where they've had product creep, where like their product changes based on who is handling it. When you have good processes, you can give a consistent product. And when people can rely on your product, your reputation increases.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if it is something that can impact the reliability in the way that you execute, then yes, stay in your lane, do what you're supposed to do. Because what are you not looking at that you should be looking at because you're trying to do somebody else's job?
Exactly. That's why I think I'm like, wait. But you're right. It is consistency and reliability of product no matter who's touching it. It's like going to a restaurant. You want the same experience when you order your favorite dish, no matter which chef is in the back of the kitchen that night.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about processes and systems. Onboarding is obviously a big spot for systems and processes, right? Like if you're bringing on new people, that process should be the same every time. And part of that's paperwork, part of that's training for their actual on-the-job duties.
Well, and I think training is a big one. There's this book that I read when I started that CEO job called The First 90 Days. And I would recommend that to almost anybody who is either hiring high-level employees. And I mean, I guess I didn't read it from a technician lens, but potentially service employees as well, but especially executives, because it gives a great framework of how to invest your time strategically in the first 90 days to make a positive impact and stop being a drain on resources, but actually be a value add.
I like that. Well, and I think probably if you have no processes, no systems, a good place to start could be with that onboarding piece, because then you're getting them going right from the start. You're not having to retrain that down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But the other place to start is probably with what are your highest impact, like your most repeated processes, the things that you do every single day or somebody does every single day. And, you know, we kind of talked about this on the last episode, but it's probably not a 50-page manual that nobody's ever actually going to read.
Yeah.
And
20% that gets you 80% of the way there.
Okay.
And with the core processes, like what you were talking about with the things that people touch every single day, like those are your cores.
Okay.
And so you do want to start there. And then I feel like I see companies doing this a lot where they do make the exhaustively long process that we got it together. Great. Now nobody's ever going to read it again. And actually, in a month and a half, it changed because we figured out a new way to do it. Nobody updated the process document, and it just sits there in a graveyard of other process documents.
You know what? That's so real. I had somebody else in my company had built. As they were training one of their assistants, they built this like cornerstone manual, and it had every single thing in it, and it was a step-by-step so that they could train the next person. And this particular assistant that they were hiring was just documenting it as they went, and that was kind of their happy place. And so then when the employee I was talking about earlier, Shelly, that we had the issues with, when she started, I was like, great, here's this perfect manual for you. And then I'd be frustrated because she was like, I'm like, that's clearly in the manual. Yeah, I mean, it's not realistic. Like, I'm not going to read a manual every single day. At a certain point, it comes down to not necessarily perfection, but just consistency around what can you do.
Yes. And I have a tendency to create processes in a company that achieve consistent and excellent results. And if your processes are good, then those can be your training guide. So like if we have checklists, and I used to say this at that multi-unit coffee company that I worked at, is for all my general managers, like if the things in your location are going well and everything is happening the way it is supposed to happen, then I'll lessen the attention on the checklists. Okay. But the second I start seeing the signs and symptoms that things might not be getting done in the order that they should be getting done or when they need to be getting done, then the checklists are coming back. And it's not super fun. Yeah. But we need this to be executed consistently every single time. And it's cognitive burden. Like if you are relying on your own ability to just remember all of the steps of everything you have to do every single day, you're drawing away from your executive functioning, being able to focus on the things that actually matter.
That makes a lot of sense.
Build the infrastructure to support you. Even if you're doing it 1.5 million times, great. We still have the checklist. We can use that checklist for training, but it reduces the cognitive burden. It'll take you, 10 seconds to be like, yep, I did all of that.
Well, and I think maybe you also need to know your employee's role around that as well. If this is somebody that is in like an operations role that operates great on checklists, they may love the checklist. But this is reminding me, we did an episode a couple weeks ago with our friend Adam, and we were talking about ADHD in the workplace. And he was talking about how he loves creating these processes and then the systems, but he doesn't like actually working in the systems. And as he said that, I was like, oh my God, that's Ryan. Like on my team, he built this amazing system in OneNote, and it has all these checklists for all the files and these places for us to all put our notes. And it's great, but he never uses it. But he built the system, and I'm like, Ryan, what are you doing? But I realized, I'm like, when we did that episode, I was like, oh my God, the fun part was building it. The
Mhm.
fun part is not checking the boxes for him.
Yep.
And I'm a box checker. Like, I want my list. I want to cross my things off. If it wasn't on the list, I'm going to add it and cross it off anyway, because I like the checklist. So I think it's maybe about knowing, like, your salespeople probably aren't going to like the checklist very much, but your
Mhm.
ops people might love it.
Yes. However, and this is something I say all the time about myself, I'm disciplined by choice, not by nature. By nature, I am a fly by the seat of my pants, reckless, YOLO, all the things. I'll do whatever, whenever.
Mm-hmm.
I am disciplined by choice. And so I know, and it was in my early 20s, I started saying, set future Jessie up for success. Because there was too many times where early
like
20s Jessie would get to some point in her life or her week or her day and be like, why?
Yeah. This is good enough, right?
It's like, past Jessie, why? And so anyway, I understand that. And there's nuance to there, right? Like, the system might be overcomplicated, and that might be why people aren't using it. But if it's truly just because I don't want to, the only way you're going to achieve consistently excellent results is through discipline.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes for anything and everything, whether it's
Mhm.
your gym workout or your what you eat or whatever else.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're right. It is a choice. If you're not changing it, you're choosing it. We said that last time. So
I like that one.
yeah, but I do think that there is something to be said for recognizing how your employees' brains work. And if you are trying to, if the role you're hiring needs a bunch of creative people, like, building a 47 step checklist is probably not their best life.
No.
So, just being a little bit fluid with maybe what that works.
Yes.
And sometimes I think people's roles stand out differently down the road. Like, Ryan, I think, is capable of what he's in, but I think, like, if a file goes wrong, that's his best life, because he can dive in and figure out how to fix that file, and nobody will work harder to do that than him. And I love that for him, but I'm like, I don't want to have to have a whole person to do. I don't want problems to come up. Like, it's great that we can fix them if they do, but let's, like, just not have them be a problem in the first place.
Yeah.
So
let's get ahead of the fire.
yeah. Well, let's kind of move on a little bit from that and talk about kind of financial visibility. So, like, I think a lot of people are really blind to their numbers. I see this when I start talking to self-employed people about buying a house, and I've stopped asking self-employed people how much money they made last year, because they don't know. They have no idea what their tax return looks like. They don't even know what their gross receipts were. 95% of the time, they have no idea. So how important is it to know your numbers and to look at them periodically?
So important. So I am not a financial professional. I am not an accountant. I am not a CFO. I work in collaboration with accountants, controllers, bookkeepers. So if you ask me to handle your books, I will not touch them with a 10-foot pole. And if I see the signs and symptoms that your books might not be accurate, I will absolutely be raising that flag and telling you need to look somewhere else, because it is so important.
Got it.
I believe in monthly financial reviews. You should be looking at what happened last month, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a micro business or you're a big business, a big small business. Looking at what happened last month, understanding, hopefully you have a budget as well.
Yep.
Pressing that up against your budget, understanding where you went right, where you went wrong. I used to work with the CFO, and it would grind my gears, but he would always finish every financial meeting with a lot of puts and takes, but it looks like we came out okay. So, and I'm like, no, we need to be looking at the puts and takes. We need to be looking at where we missed, even if it was a positive miss, or a negative miss.
I think that's really important. A couple years ago, I had a manager that we would sit down and we would do a sales meeting once a month, but we would go over the branch profit and loss from the month before, and I loved that, because it really told me where we were at, because otherwise it becomes this kind of nebulous thing of, like, surely we're making money, like, we're closing loans, surely we're making money. But if you don't have somebody to show you that behind the scenes, you don't know. And you can be closing loans, but if it's not profitable, if you're taking price variances on every single one, or you're not closing profitable products, or your team isn't right sized and you're hemorrhaging money that way, or we're doing our disclosures wrong. Like Shelly was the one doing disclosures. I had probably on average $800 per file of things she disclosed wrong that came directly off of my paycheck on every single file. Michelle, on the other hand, like if I have to pay for $20 on that file, she is pissed. Like she is dialed and everything is over disclosed and perfect. And so I love that. And it's good to have somebody that kind of keeps your eye on that prize a little bit. But I think people forget to look at the actual profitability, and like cash flow for businesses is king, right?
Yes.
Like cash flow has to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a lot you can do to impact that cash conversion rate. And even if your cash flow is healthy, you still want to keep a finger on the pulse. And another thing I will say, and we talked about this in the first episode, is meetings that should have been emails. If your financial meeting feels like it could have been an email, you're doing it wrong. And we really do want to come out of those meetings, because I promise you, you're never going to have a perfect financial month.
Yeah.
So every month you want to come out of them with action item. Who's going to do what by when? Like, what do we need drill down reports on some of those line items to understand why there was a miss there? Was there, and like even labor is another one where if you're in a good, consistent habit of budgeting and you're coming consistently low on your labor, like there is such a thing as your labor being too low.
Sure.
Because if you're not having to pay a ton of, if you're not paying out what you historically have in the past, there could be a misclassification. That labor could be buried in one of your other departments, or people are cutting corners. But if there isn't a specific reason, even for good performance, you still want to look at it.
Well, I think that makes sense. And I think there's kind of two different facets, and maybe there's more, but for me, there's expenses and then there's like growth of sales. And so in the mortgage business, like we kind of talk about that. And that's something I hate being like nickeled and dimed on, like, oh, well, we're going to start charging for this now, or we're going to up this little fee, or we're going to do this. Like that kind of stuff drives me crazy. I'd rather just focus on like, let's just go get more deals. Like let's just go get more loans and like not worry about the $47 increase to our credit report fee or whatever. But I know that both things are smart. And I think that happens to businesses where they forget to focus on those expenses, and especially when businesses start growing fast, like maybe growing too fast, too quickly. All of a sudden you've got this cash flow that you don't know what to do with, and you feel like you're rich all of a sudden. And especially for people that like have never had a lot of money or weren't good at managing money. Like I've learned that if you weren't good at managing money when you had $5, you're not going to be good at managing money when you have $5 million. And it just becomes this exponential fail. So I think being really aware of where that money is coming and going, and not just like it's a free for all. And I'm talking to myself too. Like the more money I make, the more I spend. It just happens, because if I'm not careful and I don't pay attention and I don't track it, I'm like, where in the hell did all that go? Taxes is a big answer, but
yes, taxes is a huge answer. But yeah, I think even within that scaling conversation, I think where a lot of companies have a tough time watching is what are the right roles to hire at what time, and how can we strategically onboard those roles so that we don't have this like massive tip of overhead when our sales haven't caught up yet.
Right. Well, and I think we were talking about that on the ADHD episode we did with Adam the other day. And he was talking about how he really hates sitting down and like doing a bid for something. He has a promotional products company, and like he wants to do the fluffy creative stuff and come up with the cool things. He doesn't want to sit down and do the bid for the things you're already doing, but that's profitable and that's what pays the bills. And so I was like, Adam, that's your first hire. Like you are going to have to hire somebody to do that part, because that's how you get to the finish line. And he was like, yeah, you're right. I am going to have to do that. So I do think it's about finding the thing that you don't want to do and letting somebody else that maybe is their best life. And for most people, I think it's the money stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't touch my books.
But I think it's a scary thing too, because you do have to pay attention. I mean, it's pretty
I
easy
look
to
at
embezzle.
my books. I don't touch my books.
I love it. Okay, so when you talk to an owner who's revenue focused but doesn't want to dig into the financials, like how do you get them to see that? So like I ask people for their tax returns all the time. I have to ask people for profit and loss statements all the time. It shocks me how many people cannot pull a profit and loss statement quickly. Like they're like, either they don't know what it is, or they don't have QuickBooks, they don't have something. They're like, I have no idea how to generate that for you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about scaling in the last podcast. And one of the things that I say over and over and over again is when you scale, you have issues that surface you didn't know you had, and the issues that you already had compound.
Yeah.
One of the things with looking at just top line revenue is you can add more and more and more, but if you are not looking at all of the components that go into that, your profit margin is likely decreasing.
Yeah.
So you're making maybe the same amount of money for a much bigger machine and probably more headaches.
Right.
And so it's the devil's in the details. Like there's so much in there. Even if we talk about software, like in this age of AI, I work with so many companies that are onboarding all of these softwares, and they're fractured. None of them are talking to each other. They're underutilized. The expense is actually adding up really quickly because even they're like, oh, it's only $5 per user for this one. Well, you have 10 users on that one and you have another 10 over here and nobody's even logged into this one for months.
Yeah.
And like all of that. I have one friend that talks about this grains of sand all the time. And she uses it as an analogy of when you're having kind of weird interactions with somebody, and a grain of sand by itself is not a big deal, but when you start to sweep them together, it's a pile and you're like, dang, that's dirty. Similar thing happens with expenses. By themselves, they might look small. Add them all together, massive.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. Those little things add up. It's like when you're building a house and everything is like, oh, that's just 5,000 here. Oh, that's 5,000 here. And pretty soon you've got $100,000 in upgrades and you have no idea what happened. So it happens on a smaller scale with houses and businesses as well. So as we kind of start to wrap this up a little bit, there's one thought that I feel like we haven't really touched on, and that is about just kind of specializing in things. I feel like sometimes people try to expand their products too much. And you've talked a little bit about product expansion and all of that kind of a thing. But it feels to me like sometimes you're better off to stay focused, and I know there's some quotes around it, but like basically riches in the niches type of a thing. Like the more you can specialize, the more that you can kind of refine probably your numbers and what your real value is. Do you think that's true, or do you think that it's okay to be expansive and try to hit more boxes, I guess? I don't know.
So I see good to great over there. And I think it's chapter 5.
Okay.
Is the hedgehog concept. And the analogy that goes with it is the fox is cunning and smart and fast and all of these things. And it tries all of these different tricks to get the hedgehog, but the hedgehog does one thing really, really well, and it puffs up its spikes. And so it doesn't matter how smart the fox is. It doesn't matter how fast the fox is. The hedgehog does one thing really, really well. And so that book, if you haven't read it, good to great, highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Jim Collins is the author on that one.
And it creates this really intensive framework for good companies versus great companies, and what made this company excel and that company didn't. And then they came up with all of these principles, which are each one of the chapters. But I do really agree with the hedgehog concept of like all of the things that we've talked about, hiring, having the right roles in the right seats, having the right seats on the bus, like being able to delegate, creating processes, delivering with excellence and consistency,
Well, even just having a vision.
metrics. Yes, having a vision. Like, if all of that is centered around a few things that you do better than anybody else, and you can perfect all of the infrastructure that supports that,
Yep.
then yes.
And I think to bring that full circle, that probably comes down to making it saleable as well. If you just have this one specific thing that you do,
Yeah.
and that you can sell that to somebody else and that's all they have to learn, like, I feel like that would be easier than like buying a company that does 4,000 different things and you're like, holy crap, I now got to be an expert in all of this.
Yeah, it helped sell a company like that. And we called it a Frankenstein because it was 80 years old and it had evolved quite a bit, but it was so hard to sell because it touched so many different industries and people would be attracted to it for this part of the business, but they were like, what the heck am I going to do with all of that? Yeah, exactly. I don't know anything about that. And I do liken it to, I think you've heard me say this before, but when you drive past a restaurant and it's like hamburgers and Chinese food and you're like, those two, really? How could you do both of them well? Or the Schitt's Creek scene where they sit down at the diner and they open this menu that just keeps unfolding into this massive map, and it's like, there's no way
that you do all of it well.
I
say that all the time. A huge menu always terrifies me. I'm like, give me a small menu because tell me what you do best.
And these are the things that we consciously or subconsciously know, and we interact with businesses in the same way. If all of a sudden they're starting to say, hey, by the way, we added this service on, like, hire us for this too, either consciously or subconsciously, if it does not make sense, you are thinking, how are you guys going to execute that well? Because it doesn't make sense.
I agree. And I've always kind of taken that thought with my business. If somebody is referred to me like for a land loan, I can do a land loan, but I'm not the best at a land loan. So I'll refer that out to somebody that I know is the best at the land loan. And that customer is going to remember that I just have to call Renee because she's going to tell me where I need to go. Whereas if I did the land loan and it didn't maybe go super well, then maybe they're not calling me next time. And I want the next call too. Yeah. So if they know I'm a one-stop shop and I'll tell them who is the best, then they're going to continue to call me.
Well, and I do want to, as we wrap it up, we keep saying that. But one of the notes I want to end on is I always stiff-armed consulting. I never wanted to be a consultant. I accidentally ended up in consulting 3 different times. The reason I didn't want to be a consultant is I felt like they made ill-informed recommendations. They were not bought into the long-term wins and losses. They overpromised and underdelivered. And yeah, they were kind of like
maybe somebody that had failed at something else and it didn't work, so they were going to just come be a consultant now?
Yes. And so it's just like, I do not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. There's a lot of reasons of why I'm in it now, and I am loving it. But a few of the promises that I made to myself and make to my clients is that I know what I know and I know what I do not know. I understand the business result value add for what you pay me.
Yeah.
And so I will deliver on that.
I love that.
Regardless of how much time it takes me. And when I come across an issue that it just is not in my wheelhouse, I'll recommend somebody else who does. Because I don't want to impact the value that I can add for you because I'm dabbling in something that is not my area of expertise.
Exactly. And take a risk of taking down the value that you've already added by maybe making a wrong decision about something you didn't know super well.
And so I have a lot of respect for professionals like you that will also say, I can, but I probably shouldn't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's hard, especially in the beginning of a business where you're like happy to have any customer you can. But I think the sooner you can specialize, sometimes the better. And it's easier to train employees if you're specialized in one thing too.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, remind everybody, Jess, how they can connect with you if they're interested in hiring you or just talking with you more. Give us your website.
Yeah. www.liminalopsconsulting.com. So that's LIMINAL opsconsulting.com. And then there will be stuff on social media at Liminal Ops
Coming
Consulting.
soon.
Coming soon.
Well, find her on Instagram, and as she gets a whole bunch of followers, that will just make her have to dive in and post. But
Yes.
definitely recommend coming along for that ride. This woman is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm honored to call her my friend and to get to know her and to get to pick her brain. So highly recommend you do the same. And again, if you did not check out the prior episode with her, please go back and watch that. And then if this has been helpful to you, please share it with your other friends. And please like and subscribe. And stay tuned for next time. Here's to empowering each other one story at a time.
Thank you.